Hello, my peeps. I hope you're doing well this evening. This is Coach Hayes at Coach Hayes Hudl. Chris, I'm glad you're here with me this evening. We got so many things to talk about. Everybody wants to be kind of stuck on the off season after Ohio State winning the national championship over Notre Dame. But since the loss to Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl, UGA sort of had to lick their wounds and go into a different direction. And I know there's a lot of things that are being speculated out there right now, and I want to talk about those things. First off, where does UGA go after the loss in the Sugar Bowl, and what direction are we looking to for the near future? I think there's a lot of bright spots that we can talk about, and there's a lot of intangibles as well. It all comes down to the fact of who's going to be coaching at the coaching positions and who's going to be getting ready for those new Jimmy and Joes that are coming in with this 2025 recruiting class. Also, who's going to be QB1 next year? Is it Ryan Puglisi? Is it Gunnar Stockton? Do we have somebody out there we're not even talking about yet? Also, too, there's some bright news as well with the transfer portal. Looking forward to seeing some young bucks coming in, as well as obviously some experience hitting the gridiron as well when we get Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch from USC and then Texas A&M respectively. And when we look at the offense, there's some things that I've always loved about good traditional football that we're beginning to lose sight of in today's college football world. Where is the fullback, the traditional fullback in today's game? The NFL's not doing away with it. I don't think college football should either. And there's a lot of teams that think if they go back to it, might see some better success in the run game. So right out of the gate, Coach Smart is obviously entering into the month of January, obviously out there on the recruiting trail and working with his coaching staff. And obviously, I know there's probably going to be some annual evaluations taking place because contract extensions are going to be taking place, as well as contract talks about his assistant coaching staff. If you're a head coach, you definitely want to sit down with all your assistant coaches annually to talk about productivity, what you can do better, what you can do worse. And honestly, these are the times where you're going to basically have to face the, look in the mirror and face the piper, because there could be the opportunity of someone being let go. A lot of people are speculating that Bobo may not be our OC next year due to the lack of production and what we saw in this year's football team. Being a coach myself, 20 years of experience, and having both OC and DC in my title, I do know the consistency that you have to have, because if you're not adapting and you're not improving your craft, you're dying. And I know that as you go, there's going to be things that you like that you see, but you never really want to steer away from what drives you as a football coach and what your base knowledge is in that scheme. And to me, you can always have that foundation, that core foundation, but you have to learn to adapt that core foundation of what you want to do so that you can meet today's needs of what these kids are wanting to see in an offensive, as an offensive guru, and being able to be productive, where there's symmetry, there's a complementary game off of everything that you do, that you see consistency, and that there's not this for lack of better words, just this sexy mentality that offenses bring today that are high scoring teams. But unfortunately, what's getting lost in this are the methodological type offenses that, ground and pound 3 and 4 yards. It's just not something that people want to watch, it seems, anymore. But yet it's productive. It could be productive, and it will be productive if people would want to stay around for it. But unfortunately, it's like the ADD of all other things. We want our entertainment. We want everything to be done yesterday. And unfortunately, in today's world, today's offenses, if you're lining up in the I formation or, multiple running back sets and just running the football 75-80% of the time with less throwing, for some odd reason, that's taken away, it seems, the spectacle of what is college football. And I completely disagree with that. The problem that we see, I think, in the years that has progressed is everybody's saying, well, Coach Smart and Coach Bobo go way back. They're friends. That friend mentality is not working anymore. Coach Bobo had a very productive year last year, averaging 40 plus, north of 40 plus a game. And still, we had people criticizing him, even though he had the likes of Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, Rosemary Jack Saint, even though who is not picked up on waivers. I think he's on a practice squad now, but was a very reliant receiver. And you had those complimentary receivers in Smith and Bell, and it might have been Smilling, but Smith and Bell, and even Dominic Lovett, who we had high hopes for coming in from Missouri. Heck, I had him as our 1,000-yard receiver this year. But it just turned out, with them being sort of the complimentary receivers with Brock and Ladd and Rosemary Jack Saint here, that all of a sudden we had a situation where those three, when put in, sort of shoved, not put, sort of shoved into the limelight, they couldn't produce. And all of a sudden we saw this lack of manufacturing of points, and flat out can basically say they did not perform up to the standard that we thought they could. Those three in particular. And the complimentary receivers that are with them, we want to see productivity from them. Things like, i.e., London Humphreys and Anthony Evans before he decided to enter the transfer portal. So now we're going to have to rely on freshmen becoming sophomores and Notre Tuggle and Jacoby White. Obviously, the additions of Zach Branch and Noah Thomas is going to be helpful for us. I'm really looking forward to Kobe Young coming back. But Lord willing, that happens. But anyhow, the problem that everybody wants to see is if Mike Bobo leaves, that continually just fixes everything about what we do. There's also, too, a Stacy Searles, seems like pitchfork and their torches coming after him as well because of the lack of our offensive line production this year. Guys, there's a lot of things that can cause the breakdown and the inconsistencies that we saw this year in our offense. And honestly, I can't put that past Carson Beck. Carson Beck leaving to go to Miami after pulling his name from the NFL draft documentation because I think he received a bad grade. And when he received a bad grade, decided that he was going to step down and look at other options. I think he truly had lost the locker room at University of Georgia. I think they wanted to cut ties with him. I think it was best for both parties. And honestly, I'm not going to say anything bad about Carson Beck. Go have your time at Miami and get drafted. Whether we want to classify him as a damn good dog or not, I don't really care, honestly, to tell you the truth. I think he's, made his bed, and he's going to lie in it. He's going to choose to do what he does, going down there playing in the ACC next year. He could have a successful year next year. He could not. It depends on what he's got around him. But I do know this. A lot of teams tend to rally around a quarterback that has the locker room. And I don't think he had the locker room at the University of Georgia. And I think that's why we saw the reflection of inconsistencies throughout the course of the year. And then that kind of reflects back to your offensive coordinator. Your offensive coordinator is trying his best to figure out a way to get the ball in playmakers' hands. So when you have the inconsistency of two of your five linemen hurt at times where you never had your starting five in the same rotation until towards the end of the year, you have a running back discrepancy where we ended up really having just two scat backs, no ground and pound backs in the Robinson kids because they were both hurt. And it changed our mentality of what we wanted to do because, when it comes down to yak and getting extra yards, nothing against ETN and Nate Frazier. I mean, they're going to make kids miss to get their extra yards. But, the Robinson kids being as stout and strong as they are in the legs, they were going to get a lot of their inside interior yards by, pulling people with them and having linemen leaning on people and having that opportunity to see that come to fruition. That never happened either. And then you've got what I spoke of earlier, where you've got three wide receivers that we're looking to heavily count on this year in Smith, Bell, and Lovett, and they can't get the job done because all of a sudden we see what's happening in the NFL and the productivity of what Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers are doing. And we also saw the consistency in the hands that Rosemary Jack Saint brought to the team as well before he left and departed to go to the Commanders. So, it's really a double-edged sword with a combination of Carson Beck, to me, losing the locker room, not having the wide receivers to underperform the way they did, the inconsistency in our offensive linemen staying injured, and not having our bruising running backs to be able to carry the football and give a little bit of light to what Trevor Etienne and to what Nate Frazier were doing. Those inconsistencies can really add up. Now, am I taking up for Coach Bobo? No. There are some things that I could definitely cherry pick about his offense that really we say, well, he's not really using Monken's offense. He's kind of doing his own thing, and it's very consistently going in the wrong direction. But, heck, he may be handcuffed with what he could do because of the production of what his offensive talent was showing him. And it comes down to the fact, do you have the kids that are willing to go out there and block for each other? Do you have the kids? I mean, do these kids even hang out with one another? It began to wonder, like Carson Beck just seemed like a single individual out there on the field with all of his teammates. Sort of working. It's sort of like a disconnect in the family, and it was evident when he got hurt and Gunnar Stockton came in the Texas game. There was a rally. You saw it. You saw how it happened when Gunnar came in. And I can get on Gunnar Stockton here in just a few minutes when I talk about him and Ryan. But I sit there and think to myself, even with Gunnar coming in and having the time they had to prepare for the Sugar Bowl, I really didn't see what I wanted to see in the offensive production. It was like, okay, let's put Gunnar in, who has a completely different, you know, schematic versus what Carson Beck does. And you're trying to run your offense just like it was when Carson Beck was in the game. And it's like trying to fit a square peg through a circle hole. And that's something that, just didn't work well for us. And we saw that, and still, even with the inconsistencies that we had with Gunnar, he still came out, I think, and produced and did well enough for us to win the ball game. We take a knee right before the half and we don't give up the kickoff return, kicking it into the end zone instead of giving them a chance to return. That's the difference of a lot of points that could have made, something swing another way for old lady Mo in the second half. But, again, those things happen for a reason. They did happen. We got beat. We have to lick our wounds. We have to return to the drawing board. We have to evaluate our coaching staff, and we have to move forward. Now, going forward, I would think Coach Bobo, if he does decide this, I think it's going to be a mutual decision between friends, because this is something that's talked about time and time again, especially if you're friends. Listen, I know I'm not doing my job. There's obviously a disconnect somewhere, Coach. So, Kirby, I'm just going to step down and move on to becoming whatever it may be. It could be, hey, I'm just completely stepping down. I could be stepping down to become an analyst and kind of do the job or the role that Muschamp did. And let's let somebody else step up into that and look at hiring from the outside in. Maybe look at what we've talked about in the past. I know a lot of people are Buster Faulkner happy, but I don't know necessarily if Buster Faulkner comes in. When you kind of string tie yourself into one type of dynamic where you need a running quarterback or a +1 quarterback to make your offense successful. What if you've got a dynamic guy that's a pass, he's a pocket guy. He's, 3 and 5 step drop guy. He is someone that's going to be from the pro. He's not a +1 quarterback. Then all of a sudden, Buster Faulkner, a quarter of his offensive playbook is dead. And those kind of things happen. So I am not going to be disappointed if I see Coach Bobo come back, because I'm going to know that Coach Smart feels in his best regard that we're dealing with a better situation with better athletes in those situations, maybe not proven, but to get the opportunity to see him coach with guys that can make plays. Because when it comes down to it, the Jimmies and Joes matter. Just for example, Trey Scott, defensive line coach. I know his first couple of years, a lot of people are saying, who is this cat? We're not getting anything out of him. Defensive line's getting moved around. We've got nothing. All of a sudden, you get Jordan Davis, you get Devontae White, you get Trayvon Walker, you get Jalen Carter. How in the world can I not even mention him first with what he's doing with the Eagles right now? But it's still the same thing. You've got those Jimmies and Joes. You've got those athletes in position, and he ain't doing anything differently. He's coaching the heck out of every kid that he's got there, trying to develop them and make them better. But he took some kids that you're talking about development. Jordan Davis was a 3-star athlete and moved him up, and all of a sudden now he's performing out of his mind. Jalen Carter was a high-star recruit, but I think he got better when he was at the University of Georgia. And the reason why it is absolutely asinine that he was not picked in the top 5 of the NFL draft, how he slid down and got by so many teams for Philadelphia to pick him up. And, it's what makes me a Philadelphia Eagle fan now, because we got so many dogs on the team. But, and now Trey Scott deserves a raise. Pay that guy. Make sure he's in, that he's taken care of, that he's got his bag. Because, from a recruiting standpoint, I think he was doing a great job and still doing a great job. But it comes down to it. We're going to start getting those guys in there. And this year, if you think about what we recruited on the defensive line, and people like Isaiah Gibson and Elijah Griffin, and obviously I know a lot of people are butthurt about the Justice Terry pull, but those things happen in today's NIL world. Who knows? In 2 years, he may be back with Georgia anyway. So just like it's funny, we've got a guy right now on our team that we really like and we think is going to be a high recruit and do some good things for it, and he could be gone in 2 years. We just don't know in today's time. It's such a fickle situation now, and that's the reason why I don't get too up or down about it. So, if Coach Smart decides to keep Coach Bobo, I'm going to trust Coach Smart. He hasn't let me down yet, honestly. And even though I know coaches are coaches and they're going to do what they want to do, if he decides to keep Coach Bobo, he's keeping him for the right reasons. He knows he can do what he's supposed to do, and he can bring this team into the new year with what we've got coming back and do something well with them. If he doesn't bring him back, I'm not going to be upset either. I'm going to be very excited to see who he decides to bring in to take this Georgia offense into the 2025 season with all the kids that we've got coming in this year and the ones we have retained. So stay tuned to that, because that's something looking forward going into the near future. Now, with all that being said, I wanted to be able to bring out and talk to you about two transfer portal guys that we've gotten. And the first one that I'm going to talk to you about is Noah Thomas. Noah Thomas is a Texas A&M kid. This will be his fourth year. He's got 3 years of stats underneath him. His season totals for all 3 years that he's played, he's just south of 1,000 yards. Last year was his best year. But what I like about him is he's got a very tall frame. Definitely runs well without the football, runs good routes, and definitely once catching the ball can run away from defenders too. I like when being a big frame kid, especially if you're going to be on the outside lined up with corners, is to be able to separate yourself and go up for 50-50 balls and have the ability to take them down when you've got a corner that's gnawing at your kneecaps while you're going up for the football. You know, with Kobe Young, if he comes back, which I haven't heard anything different from him, I would say that having Noah Thomas at Z and Kobe Young at X, and you're inside the 20 in the red, and you're trying to throw up a 50-50 ball or running slot fade and doing some combo stuff with those two guys, my goodness, this is going to be something hard to defend. So I want to bring in real quick and just show you Noah Thomas and what he brings to us from Texas A&M. And I'm really excited to see what he does. The only downside is coming in and learning the playbook. As you know, Dominic Lovett took a while to do that as well. That's the only downside to me with these transfer portal kids when they come in. But, you know, for him to make catches the way he does here from Connor Wegman, left-handed kid on the corner route, and here, that's something you can't teach a lot of times to wide receivers. They want to drift. But, you know, to me, he's a good route runner. He understands the route tree very well. He takes on hits and has the ability to keep on moving. Like here, this 50-50 ball where he goes up, just takes it away from the corner. That's something shoulder going up and getting it and bringing it down. I think this is another one. Yep. This is on the outside catching a pack and go. Just phenomenal work there from him. Another one that I really want to see do well is Zachariah Branch. Now, this kid right here is someone I think could have an opportunity to help us immediately because of his ability, his shiftiness, and his kinesthetic awareness, being able to put his foot in the ground and change speed without really losing any speed off of this. If you watch him, he reminds me just of just his quickness and his, you know, pocket presence, his ability, his kinesthetic awareness in space is phenomenal. He's going to obviously be used on special teams as well. But what I love about him is just his ability to change speed very quickly without moving, you know, and having to really, you know, gather back up. You can see here just great, phenomenal awareness, getting off tackles, great feet. There's just a lot of good things about this kid that has got me excited with him running from the slot, I think is where we'll have him at. But, you know, when it comes down to it, I like what I see in his route running abilities. When he catches the football, he watches everything in and attacks to a point. I think that when you see him as a slot receiver, that he has the ability to maneuver and get away, like I said, from defensive backs. But he's going to be lined up on safeties a lot if he's in the slot. I love to see the screen game to him, obviously, too. But, you know, with him at USC, I know we're looking here at the defensive prowess of these teams, but what I just like to see is that he's already polished with everything that he does. I like his, like I said, overall quickness in space, and I can't get over the fact of him, you know, being able to come in as a high talented recruit and being able to help Georgia immediately. Again, though, I hope that he can learn the playbook fairly quickly, because with that being said, that a lot of times can slow you down and you can't be fast and confused at the same time. And I really want to see him have the ability to come in and help Georgia as quickly as possible. But if you look at it, I just see a lot of good things from him, from his ability to want to, his aggressiveness in space. He's not scared of contact. He wants to get the football crossing. And like I said, the quarterback gets the ball to him, you know, being able to go up and be aggressive. And obviously, don't want to fumble. I think that was the ground though. But still, I just look at everything that he does, and he just really makes people look silly in space. I'm not going to call him Lad McConkey, but he has that sort of shimmy to him that I really like to see in his hips and his feet. That's the reason why I talk about his kinesthetic awareness, to be able to move in space very quickly without losing speed when he changes that direction. And so, a lot of good things from Zachariah Branch. Him and his brother, both Zion Branch. I'm really excited to see what both of those guys bring to us as they come into the University of Georgia next year, and how they can add the depth to the wide receiver room. And again, we just got to find that profile. But again, it comes down to the fact, can we keep people healthy? Can we keep kids off this distraction list of having, it's just like the Rah Thomas and, of course, Colby's news as the year progressed, having to deal with those distractions were unbelievably hard. Because if you think about it, think if Rah Thomas is not having to deal with all his dispute and he's getting a chance to play. Kobe Young doesn't have any distractions with his situation. He's getting to play. Does that change, the offensive production this year? Does Coach Bobo have a different scenario with those two actually in there along with Bell, Smith, and Lovett? I think that changes it. I mean, it was obvious that they were going to be potential go-getters this year for us at the Z and the X position respectively. And I think that handicaps you when you don't have all of your playmakers out there with you. So, hopefully this year we can gel with whoever becomes QB1 and have the opportunity to see, something good moving forward. Now, it comes down to the fact that obviously next year, a lot of people see what Gunnar Stockton did coming into the SEC championship game against Texas, and then turns around and goes out into the SEC championship, helps win the ball game for him, and we've got high hopes for him in the Notre Dame game. We can't say anything about his production in the Notre Dame game. Did he have some bonehead mistakes? He sure did. But for the most part, I don't think he did anything that lost that ball game for us. So with that being said, we look into the offseason and we see what we've got behind Gunnar Stockton. I'm really looking forward to seeing how him and Ryan Puglisi, and there's Coulter Ginn. You've got the Hollander kid. There's an opportunity that they might end up bringing in somebody else as well. Ryan Montgomery's having to deal with ACL surgery and the post-op to that, so it's going to take time for him to get back out there as well. So honestly, I think they have the quarterback groupings that they want. But we're going to have to rely on the fact that the coaching staff is going to have to see what's best for them and be able to evaluate who they think is going to be that QB1 next year. A lot of people think it's just Gunner's job to lose, but I think Ryan Puglisi is going to give Gunner a run for his money next year. Unfortunately, Ryan Puglisi doesn't have a sample size of plays. We were so inconsistent this year offensively that we never got a chance to really see our second and third quarterback. And honestly, I don't think Ryan took a snap this year. I know he was hurt in the spring, but, it gives us the opportunity to see these guys, perform and see what they can do against one another. I am not against Gunnar Stockton whatsoever because I love his moxie. I love the chemistry he brings to the team. I think he definitely doesn't ever lose a locker room. I think people believe in him. But if you see, like with Ryan Puglisi here and his steps and things that he does, I'm watching here. But I just, wanted to break down a little bit of quarterback play and showing what they do in their individual times, running to the running backs and then to the tight ends here. But, uniquely enough, I think it's going to be a great battle. And whoever ends up coming out in the end deserves to be QB1. And I trust Coach Smart. I trust our offensive staff that this is going to be one of the first years where it's just kind of raw and authentic to who's going to be truly QB1. Because everybody can say, well, it's just going to be Gunnar Stockton. Well, that doesn't mean anything. If the offensive playbook is moving along for Ryan Puglisi, it could be him that's out there. If you never know what's going to happen in the offseason and who wants to see you go out and perform. Because like I said, every day they're going to sit down at the table together as an offensive staff and with Coach Smart, and they're going to say, man, today, he made all the checks. He did all these things right. I like where he puts us in good plays. On paper, his percentage of completions are where they should be at. They're going to be looking at all these stat lines that just, point to the quarterback that's going to be our QB1 next year. I know Rashada's gone, but like I said, there is some really nice stuff that I see from Gunner, from Ryan Puglisi. And I'm going to tell you right now, the Ginn kid, I think he's a walk-on from Perry. I like him too as well. But the Hunter kid, I see his footwork and things that he's got to work on with his mechanics, and they all do. They're all young bucks. They're still working on getting better. But there's no doubt. There's no doubt there is offensive talent there, arm talent, shoulder mechanics, head knowledge, cerebral, good footwork, moving in the pocket. Eventually as time goes on, they learn to change plays at the line of scrimmage, throwing the football on the run, which I like that the coaches set these guys up to be successful with that. And I really do think that we have a good battle going on next year, because whoever they decide comes out after the dust settles to be QB1, we can definitely know that choice was authentic and came from the hip, because it was something that has been evaluated time and time again. And I guarantee you this year in the offseason, as we go through spring into summer, that Coach Smart will be in a situation again where he's worried about name. I say worried. He's going to be very vague about naming QB1, because I think it's going to take the offseason, the spring, the summer for them to figure out who they want to be QB1. And whether it's Gunner, whether it's Ryan, whoever it may be, best of luck to them moving forward, because like I said, I do see a battle in front of us. Now, offensively, I know that I am traditional. I come from an old school I backfield kind of guy. And also, when I started running my own offense, I loved running from 21 personnel. 21 personnel meaning that you have two backs, you have one tight end, two wide receivers, but you could still go trips 3x1. You can still go doubles 2x2. You can still run your deuces set twins with, tight end wing. You can still bring your fullback out and put your another receiver in. You can do all personnel things that you want to do. But when it comes down to it, you've got to hang your hat on something. And when it comes down to it, I think that being in the eye at times, there's nothing wrong with getting downhill. And honestly, this is a play that I wanted you to watch that I evaluated when the Bills played the Denver Broncos at home. Cook had a great game, over 100 yards rushing. But I'm sitting here watching NFL teams. I watched Todd Monken do it with Baltimore, even with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. That he will, when he needs to, get into some big rhino elephant sets, what I call rhinos big right, elephants big left. And, I look at all the different formations you can run out of those concepts, and being able to, have two guys pulling and a fullback leading. I mean, whether it be power, ISO, there's just so many different ways you can run gap scheme. You can run duo sets. You can trap. There's just a myriad of things that you can do out of this formation. But this is just a play that I used to run when I was at North of Murray back in the McConkey days when I was there, is twins right, and they're going to run power. So I would call this 6 down. So it's 6 to the right side, and we're running down, which down tells us that we're running power. And what they get here is an X stunt, a saw blitz, and the offensive line picks it up well, and it's a solid run play. If we could see more of this, I wouldn't mind having a true fullback back in the game. Does it dictate that we're probably going to run the football? Sure. But the way I used to remember Georgia football, which is something I think we've lost an identity in, is it doesn't matter if we got a fullback in there or not. We're going to run the football, and we're going to do it at our own will. It doesn't matter whether you want to try to stop it or not. We are going to put ourselves in position where we're going to get that 3 yards when it's 3rd and 3, or we're going to get those 2 yards when it's 3rd and 2, or 4th and 1, or 4th and 2, whatever it may be, because we impose our will at the line of scrimmage, and we've got to get back to those basics. So I want to show you here just real quickly a play that I broke down against with Buffalo against the Denver Broncos. Can we get a little love here for just base 21 personnel? We got twins right, we got a pro tight end, and we got a fullback in the game. So they've probably made a rip call to this, which is to our left, to Denver's right. The weak side is to the twins that you can see 13-1 there on screen. You got the man who is cooking right now, James Cook, in the backfield. UGA alum, and obviously a damn good dog, and already over 100 yards. And number 41, a traditional fullback out of the eye. I don't understand why we don't see more of this nowadays, because of the simple fact that it seems to be untraditional. It doesn't seem to be liked by many. But I'm going to tell you, when you got runners running downhill to get the football, it doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't want to give your tailback, who is as talented as James Cook is, to get the football full speed north and south. Now, what we're going to get here is the true I formation power. What we have done with this guy right here nowadays is we've been, he might be widened out and that H is sitting like right there off that tackle. All right. Or he could even be sitting there off the tight end for all we care. And what they're doing with these guys nowadays is the guard is pulling the kick out and the H is wrapping to the play side. They're just changing where the fullback is at. I've had so many people argue with me on this, calling it counter tray when they're not in gun out of this. But guys, this is nothing more than moving the H-back back to where he's at to a fullback position and running true power. So let me show you. Offensive lines have been coached because what you're going to get here is a good little saw blitz off of this. They're going to cross face and bring this linebacker off edge. So really it changes up responsibilities of the blocking scheme because now this is the linebacker that this guard has got to wrap to. Okay. Now, the reason why I say that is because if you draw this up on the dry erase board, just to show you an understanding, center should block back, tackle's going to block back. You should have a guard blocking up to him, and you should have a tackle blocking to him. You should have your fullback kicking this guy out, and your guard should be wrapping to this backer that's actually on play side. Now, because they are bringing a saw blitz here, this is a great call because you're moving that backer to the play side. And what happens because they saw off of this, which is just an X stunt that you do to the weak side, you bring those two. These guys are not going to just dive and go down. They're going to step with a nice base step and actually encounter both of these guys getting across their face and actually take them on the down and take them out of the play. 41 then is going to replace the fact because he now becomes the defensive end. The fullback is going to kick his ass out, and now the guard is going to wrap right off those double teams, and he's going to try to fit back to this linebacker who should be working over the top because he's reading that guard. If that guard pulls, he's trying to fit over the double team to that. Guys, this is just great football. I formation, 21 personnel, like what we did at Georgia when we had short yardage situations, especially inside the 5. We ran it with Nate Frazier against Tennessee. We ran it against Georgia Tech. We ran it against Texas to score for the game-winning touchdown in overtime. This is the same concept, and there's nothing wrong with being under center and giving it to a tailback who is running downhill. I want to just show you this because of the saw. You get guard does not care about this level. He knows he's got to wrap right off of this down block right here. Guard and tackle doing a great job of staying square and taking the down across. Look at Cook, straight downhill to get the football. He's already full speed. There's the fullback kicking out that linebacker that's come up on the edge. That other linebacker is fitting over the top right there. Watch the guard get to him. And now, in this case scenario, because both linebackers are taken, there's one of them. There's the other one. James Cook now can make his cut wherever he wants to go, and typically it's just a path of least resistance. He's got to make his guard right by where he blocks him at. So he goes outside. We have a great play from power in 21 personnel. So as you can see, I'm a big proponent to two backs in the backfield and running stuff that puts our running back straight downhill. I think it's productive. Georgia did run it. Mike Bobo's a big proponent of running 21 personnel. He did it a long time during the times of the Nick Chubb years. Back when he was here with Rick before Coach Smart took over. So there's a lot of things that we can look at from that position. Do I want to always be in 21 personnel? No. I can switch out from 21 personnel, go 12 personnel, 11 personnel. We can even go down to 13 personnel. We can do whatever we want to do and still be able to run spread. We can get out there on the rollout game. There's all sorts of things that you can still do, but you've got to centralize yourself. That I always felt as an offensive coach that I wanted to have 5 plays that I could run in my sleep. So if I called them by one name, we could run it any way we wanted to, out of any formation that we wanted to. A lot of times, to me, a good coordinator is not someone who has all this huge playbook to look at. My feelings are you run the same plays and you just run them out of millions of formations to just basically run the same play. If you run people everywhere and you get them out of their eye discipline, they become less focused, especially if you keep them on the field and make them more tired. Well, like I said, you can't be fast and confused at the same time. And as you wear somebody down and they can't focus on what they're doing and they're tired, all of a sudden you put yourself one up when you're on the offensive side of the football. So you can still do a lot of good things offensively, but dang it, man, just every once in a while, get in that 21 personnel and go ball. I'm appreciating you being with me tonight. I've been a lot of cool things to talk about. We are in talking season now. It is the off season. We got Georgia basketball doing a great job so far. I know we wasn't too excited about the fact of the back-to-back losses to Tennessee and Auburn, there's a lot of good things happening. I think they've got Arkansas tonight. And I think Mike White's doing a great job for this team. I think that we're seeing that this year come to fruition. I think we're going to be competitive this year. We got to improve that free throw shooting, though. We got to get back on the boards in the defensive transition. But there's a lot of things positive about seeing Georgia basketball playing well and doing well. And that's all because we're developing the program as we're moving into that second and third year of recruits that Mike White's getting here. Same thing goes for the baseball program. I see a lot of good things happening for the Georgia Bulldog athletic program, and it's obviously great to be a Georgia Bulldog. And as always, I'm going to be talking to you about those things as we move into the off season. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions for me, you can reach me through my website and look at the @Coach Hayes Hudl. Be able to put some questions, comments, concerns into the video. I'll be glad to respond to them. I enjoy my patrons who watch my show, and I just wish you a good night. Take care, and God bless. Go Dogs.